All right, so again, guys, this is where you want to end, your drawing. We're skipping things like the stitching and any textile details like some of you guys have, and I've got it too, like the netted fabric, which I have right here. I'm not going to be drawing any of that in. I even have some stitching right here, and then the stitching along these edges. I am not including any of that stuff in my drawing. That stuff will be easier to paint in later. Okay? So, this is where you want to end. You basically want to have all your sections drawn. So the other day where we left off, this is kind of where we ended. So what I'm going to do today is show you guys how to draw basically the toe of your shoe and the housing unit for the shoelaces. Okay? So what I'm going to do, next thing I'm going to do, I want to figure out where my shoelaces need to go. And so for me to be able to do that, I need to figure out where this kind of section is. So I'm going to try to figure out where this ends, because I know obviously where it starts in my drawing, and just need to figure out where it ends and then where the what kind of angle it needs to have on there. So I'm literally going to use, again, plumb and level. So I'm going to look to see where that ends and where it hits the other parts of my shoe that I've already drawn, like the sole of my shoe. So when I look at that, it's about even with this. So I'm going to draw a line where that goes. And then I'm going to measure. I'm going to literally take my hands, I'm going to measure off the sole of my shoe to here just to see how tall that section is. Now everybody should be drawing along with me. So just don't sit there and watch this demo. You need to also participate too. So once I do a step, you should be working on your drawing. So I've got that. Now if you guys notice on my shoe, I do have this sort of like scalloped edge. I'm not going to draw that in yet. I'm just going to keep it straight because, again, I'm just trying to figure out where this goes. Now notice that I've only drawn the front of this section. I need to draw now the back. So all I'm going to do is take where that ends. I'm going to look at the back edge, and this is a little bit shorter than there. And then the other thing that I noticed too is that it's thinner here and it gets wider up there. So as I move up, I'm going to widen this. And that means I need to probably change that. Because ideally it's going to end like this. So again, when you add something new to your drawing, it's going to cause you guys to make adjustments to other areas, and that's only natural. So if you find that you're fixing a lot, that's good. That's a good sign. It means you're making the drawing better. So there's that part. So now what I'm going to do, I want to make sure that I still have enough room for my toe. So I'm literally going to measure off my shoe and put it down on my paper. Make sure, and I think I need to shorten this a little bit. So this is a little too long. All right, so the next thing that I have to do is now I'm going to draw the toe of my shoe. So this is, again, another part or section of the shoe that a lot of people get a little hung up on. So when I draw the other side of the toe, what I notice is that the shoe actually goes up and behind the back edge of the housing unit for the shoelaces. So I'm going to start here. And the other thing, too, that I notice is that this line is not perfectly straight. It's kind of bumpy, and it's because the shoes have been worn before. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of plug in those bumps that I see on the shoe. And then I'm just going to finish it off. So that is pretty much the sort of what I would call like the shell of the shoe. the next step for me, guys, listen, you're not going to be able to know what's going on if you're not listening. The next step of the drawing is now to go through and start cutting in and adding all of these different sections, okay? So what I'm going to do now, okay, I'm going to go ahead and start plugging in some of these big sections that I see on my sole of my shoe. These little details like this stuff right here and like right in here, I'm not going to add in yet. Because again, I've got to break it up into the big shapes first. So start with the big shape, go down to the middle, medium-sized shapes, and then do all the little guys at the end, okay? Shoelaces we'll do here in just a little bit, okay? So now I'm just going to kind of define the stuff a little bit more. Guys, if you're talking, you're not working. And everybody has something to do in here. Guys, everybody needs to be working. So go ahead and start breaking up this stuff, okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to now show you guys how to get the shoelaces on. This is another part that a lot of people get a little bit hung up on. So hopefully this will help you guys work on that area. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do the shoelaces. I'm going to kind of zoom in onto this section so it's a little bit easier to see. So the first thing I want to do, I want to figure out, and you're not going to be able to draw the shoelaces until you know where they've got to go first, okay? So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out how many shoelace holes that I have, okay? So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I have another one that's over here. I'm not going to actually count that quite yet. So I need to get 6 up here. So what I'm going to do is just start by drawing where I think that my first one needs to go, and I'm just going to make a mark where that goes, and then a mark where I think the last one needs to go. And so I'm just marking. I'm not drawing the circles yet because, again, I don't even know if I have it in the right spot. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to evenly space out because mine are evenly spaced out. Now if yours are not, then don't do that. Now I'm going to go ahead and try to squeeze in 4 more into these spots. And I'm, again, just going to do these little dots so I can figure out where they've got to go, and then I'll start drawing them in as circles. So once I've figured out where they've got to go, which that looks like it's spaced out fine to me, then I'm going to go ahead and draw these circles. Trying to keep these all kind of the same size. And again, some of you guys, your shoelace holes are different sizes, even different shapes and different designs. And then I can go ahead and then add that 7th one down here. Now, again, if you guys recall, I have this scalloped edge on my shoelace, so now's the time for me to draw that in. Because I've got those shoelace holes in there, I know where I need to do that. So I'm just going to start cutting into that shape. So now I'm going to add that detail in. So again, if you have something like that going on with your shoe, now would be a good time to add it. And then that may lead you guys to some other things. Like for me, I've got like a separate piece of kind of like trim fabric right here, so I'm going to draw that in where that needs to go. So again, you add something to your drawing, it could lead you to another area. So you add something, you might find yourself adding some more, or even changing or making alterations. That's completely normal. Alright, so I'm also going to, and I can see over on the other side of my shoelaces, I can see how thick the material is right here on the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and draw that in too. And then the other thing that I noticed too, I can't really see that scalloped edge very well on the other side, but I can see it kind of, it looks a little wavy. So I'm going to go ahead and plug that in and show how thick the material is over there. And then it sort of just, I kind of lose it up here, so I'm going to stop it there. So now it's time for the shoelaces. So when you draw the shoelaces, guys, you want to draw one section at a time. So you don't want to think about the shoelaces like one big long string, like what they actually are. You want to think about it in sections. So I'm going to just start down here at the bottom, the very bottom. I'm going to start there and just work my way up, and at some point I'll probably stop and then do the knot and then fill in the rest. But when you guys do the shoelaces, one of the things that you should notice is that the shoelaces should look thicker in the front, and then they should look thinner towards the back, so it makes it look like they're going out and in, okay? So I'm going to start by drawing the first section. One of the things that a lot of people are surprised about is just how much of the actual shoelace hole that the shoelace covers up that you can't see. So kind of use that as a guide. And then take note of how the shoelace changes as it's going from this hole over to the other side and wrapping on top of the shoe. So you want to draw that in so you can see how that looks. And then the next step is for you to erase all of the shoe that the shoelace is covering up, including the other parts of that shoelace hole. So this is probably one of the biggest mistakes a lot of people make, is that they don't take the time to erase all these parts that the shoelace should be covering. Okay? So there's my first section. Now my next section is under the shoe. So what I'm going to do now for this, I'm just going to see where one ends and the other one goes, and again making sure that the shoelace looks like it's getting thicker as it's coming forward. And so there's the under. Now I'm going to then just start where I left off. Do this next one. Got to figure out where this one goes. And again, notice how thick it is in the front and how much thinner it is as it goes towards the back. And then always take that extra step to erase the parts of the shoe that the shoelace is covering. And then I'm going to just keep going. Just make sure your shoelaces that are going up and over are actually on top of your shoe. All right, so I'm going to stop right there because the next step, I've got the knot of my shoe that's up here, and I don't really know. I need to do that first before I can fill in these last few sections. So with the knot of your shoe, the first thing you want to do is you actually want to start with the knot itself. So a lot of people kind of get a little confused as to how to go about this. But if you start at the knot, I think it makes it a lot easier. So what I want to do is figure out where the knot actually is on my shoe, and it's above my shoe, kind of right on top. So this is where I'm going to start, okay? And I'm going to start by just drawing the first shape that I see. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And this is what the first shape looks like, okay? And then I just see just a little bit of another shape right on top of there, or right next to it. So again, I start with one shape and I just build off of it. So I'm just going to just draw whatever I see around it. So that's it for my knot. I have no other shapes to draw for that. Now, depending on how your guy's shoe is, you may find something different. You may have more shapes than me. You may have less. Who knows? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start drawing what, for me, it makes most sense, is I'm going to start drawing over here on my left side. I have the end of my shoelace string because that's what's in front. So I'm going to draw what I see in front first. I'm going to start wherever I see it starting off my knot. And I'm going to take this and draw it till I see it stop. And then I have the little kind of plastic caps at the end. So there's that. Now I'm going to start drawing the bunny ear. So again, I'm going to start it wherever I see it starting off my knot. I'm just going to try to find the outside edge and just draw that first. See where it goes. And then I'll draw the other side so I can see how thick the shoelace is. So there's that. And then I'm just going to go ahead and start drawing my right bunny ear. Now the nice thing about the shoelaces is that if you are a little off on the shape or the size of it, it's still going to look like a shoelace. So there's really, it's very flexible and forgiving. And then always make sure that you're erasing whatever parts of the shoe it's covering. And then I'm going to do the other bunny, or the other end of my shoelace, which comes out here. And then cap that off. So now that I have that done, I can draw the rest of my shoelaces. So I'm just essentially filling in the gaps here. And there we go. So there are my shoelaces. The next thing I'm going to draw is the tongue of my shoe. Okay. So the tongue of my shoe, I actually don't see too much of it just because it's getting covered up by my shoelaces. But I'm just going to draw exactly what I see. I'm going to start with the outside edge of it. And the outside edge of it, I actually see also too sort of the underside of the tongue of the shoe. So I'm going to add that in too. It kind of goes down like that. And then it's going to be kind of hard for you guys to see this, but a lot of this is getting covered up. So there's the tongue of the shoe. All right, so the next step after this, guys, is just to continue to break down your shoe into all the different sections so that, you end up with something that kind of looks like this. I would point out just some other details, like when you guys look at all these different sections on your shoe, just remember that this is not all one big piece of fabric that's been stitched together to make a shoe, but it's a lot of times different sheets of different kinds of fabrics that have been layered and then stitched together, so they're on top of each other. So you want like little details like this on the end of your shoe so that it literally does look like it's layers of material rather than just one piece. So and you just look at some of the stuff that I'm doing, like when it kind of gets to the edge, how you see all these different bumps and stuff. That's what you want to get in there. Okay, so that's your goal. Okay, I'm going to continue to work on this and hopefully talk to some people who need to catch up on some work.